On today's episode of the Post-Christian Podcast, I have with me Jeanne Stevens. How you doing, Jeannie?
It's so good to see you, Eric. I am doing well.
I'm so glad to have you. We interacted years ago, had lots of mutual friends, and you are a pastor, Soul City Church.
Mhm.
I would just love to hear through COVID, post-COVID, how is your ministry and what are some of the challenges and fortunate things you're discovering in your mission field?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's such an honor to be here and love what you're doing and love that you are creating a space for conversation for church leaders to navigate life and ministry and what that looks like and how that is always evolving and changing. And I've had the privilege of being in this seat as co-founding lead pastor. My husband and I started Soul City together. We're about to celebrate our 14th anniversary.
Wow, that's great.
And Soul City, I feel like, has had many lives over the last 14 years. The mission is the same mission. Our mission is to lead people into a transforming relationship with Jesus. But as life moves and shifts and changes, that mission looks different. And especially in the post-COVID world and
Mhm.
navigating through the last 4 years in particular. We had quite a radical shift in 2020 and 2021. How we did ministry utterly changed, just like it did for most people around the country. But I mean, we were shut down for, I want to say, almost 15 months. We did not
Wow.
physically see our people. And so, in
Mm.
so many ways, we started a church 14 years ago, and I did not think that I would be starting the same church again 10 years into the journey.
Yeah,
But I
my
feel like I've
goodness.
planted two churches in some
Mhm.
ways. I planted Soul City, when it first began, but post COVID, I feel like we planted another church. And on the heels of that, there's been so much beautiful growth,
Mm.
so much letting go of what was. We did a whole season that we called Less is More, where we just did good pruning on ourselves and cut back things that we realized were no longer necessary in the mission of our
Mm.
church. And now here we are, 4 years on the other side of that. And our church it's beyond what it was
Mm.
pre-COVID.
Mm.
Numbers, discipleship, baptisms. We're getting ready to start another church in the next few months. And, so I'm seeing fruit, but a lot of that came at the hands of a lot of pain and a lot
Yeah.
of cutting back and a lot of pruning that was necessary and needed. But I was just talking to my executive pastor the other day. The church has never felt healthier,
Mm.
and that's such a gift to
That
be
is a
to be in this
gift.
spot.
That is a gift. Well, talk a little bit about your mission field. What's it like among the people you're trying to reach there at Soul City?
Yeah, so we are in downtown Chicago in the West Loop. This neighborhood is a thriving neighborhood. It was voted fastest growing neighborhood of millennials.
Huh. Interesting.
And so it is a lot of young professionals, a lot of people in their first career, post college, moved to Chicago, new job, entering into the workforce. So our average age is really young. We've got
Hmm.
about somewhere between 28 and 32 is our average age.
Wow,
So
that's
it's
great.
really young, really dynamic, really energetic. We're 49% Caucasian. And the rest of the makeup of our church is a beautiful embodiment of people of color. And so it really is an incredible, incredible gift to lead such a ethnically diverse church that is young and is open to having conversations about what spiritual transformation looks like in their life.
I found so often that the younger folks that we're reaching or the younger folks that are still with us and, part of our church, diversity, women in leadership is a non-negotiable. Like they're not going
It
to
is.
even consider a church that doesn't look like their friends look like and doesn't take
Mm-hmm.
the freedom that we're given in Christ to carry the mantle as leaders, both male and female.
Yeah.
Talk about for a little bit how much of a difference does who you're reaching reflect the community and what it's like as a woman to lead these millennials, some of which, maybe grew up in church, others of which
Mm-hmm.
this is a new experience for them.
Yeah. I'll tell you a funny story. I was talking to somebody at church a couple weeks ago, and they were on a business trip, and they were in another part of the country, and it ended up, the trip went over the weekend, and so they went to a church, and they were looking at the staff page, and all of the names that had the word pastor next to it was men. And they were like, this is so strange. Like, I wonder if this is like a preference. I wonder if this is something that, is just this church. And so we were chatting in the hallway, and this person did not grow up in church. And they said, Jeannie, I went to this church. It was fantastic. I loved the music, loved the message. But I was looking at their page, and it looked as though women can't be pastors at this church. And I was like, oh yeah, that's a lot of places.
That's a
That's a
thing,
whole lot of places. That's a
unfortunately.
thing. And
Yeah.
they were like, really? And I was like, yeah, really. And so we just got into a wonderful conversation, and I felt appropriate pride almost in
Yeah.
Soul City, because I thought, we have created a church where people that are finding Jesus don't even know that this has been in the lineage of the story,
Hmm.
that there have been genders and specific socioeconomic or ethnicities that
Hmm.
have been given limitation in their
Yeah.
gifts.
Yeah.
But here at Soul City, that it doesn't feel that way.
Hmm.
And people aren't experiencing the gospel that way. And I went home that day and I thought, oh, I'm so grateful that I'm a part of a church that does not feel that there is not that tangential feel that there is some kind of limitation
Yeah.
put on a person. And you're exactly right. Millennials, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, I think is the next generation after that. That just does not fly with
Mhm.
that generation. It does not compute. It doesn't even like make sense in their line of thinking. And
Yeah.
so yeah, it's important to hold to what we like to say around here. What are the essentials of faith? And then
Mm.
everything else goes into a non-essential camp.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what we work hard at here at Soul City is being so faithful to those essentials.
Yeah.
There is a God, and He has a son named Jesus,
Mm.
and He gave His life in exchange for yours. And He left behind the Holy Spirit to live and breathe inside of you and to guide your life. And He set up this beautiful mechanism called the church for you to experience hope and healing and community and connection. And there's a whole lot of other things that the people of the church talk about and they make really, really important,
Yeah.
but they're not essential. They are not
Mhm.
essential to a saving relationship with Jesus. And here's the essentials. And
Yeah.
so we try really hard to help people encounter that God and that faith.
Yeah. No, and it's beautiful because in many ways, some of these limitations are cultural. They're not biblical.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Too often the church has allowed um, culture to predetermine who's in and who's out, who's allowed to lead,
Mm-hmm.
not lead. It's
Mm-hmm.
important to go back to the scriptures and really look. There's no limitations on Junia, on
Mm-hmm.
Phoebe, Priscilla.
Mm-hmm.
There's no distinction between who gets which gifts, according
Yeah.
to Paul. And so I love how you're living that out and how people are discovering kind of the other version,
Yeah.
as a surprise. And
Hmm.
a couple years ago, you wrote a book, and I'm real excited to read it and to share it with our listeners, those who signed up for my newsletter. Some of them will win a free copy. It's called What's Here Now. I want to hear a little bit about what motivated you to write it and what you hope people will get from it.
Yeah. Thanks so much. It was a privilege to write, and like all good sermons or hopefully books, it came out of my own story, and it came out of my own wrestling. It came out of my own challenges, and the challenges that I kept noticing showing up in people's lives. And that is, people are really good at being in a couple of locations. They're really good at being in the past. They're
Mhm.
really good at rehashing things that have already happened. People are really good at rehearsing the future
Mm.
and worrying about all the things that have yet happened. But people really struggle with receiving this now moment. And the
Mm.
more I understood the kingdom of God, and the more I understood how Jesus changes my own life, transforms my own life, he does it in the here and the now. He
Mm.
does it in the present. In fact, you cannot experience the presence of God without learning how to be present. And so I just really started realizing that I was really good at being in other locations other than the present moment. I was good at the past and I was good at the future, but I did not know how to be in the present moment. And so I started noticing some trends and some themes. I noticed that when people are struggling with the past, they often are dealing with blame, or they're dealing with shame, or they're dealing with guilt. These are all telltale signs, right? Or when they're out in the future, they're dealing with worry, which I like to say worry is living in a not yet that's worse than your now.
Mm.
And a lot of people are living in their not yets that are worse than their nows. It hasn't happened. You don't even know if it's going to happen, but you're living there, and you believe it's going to happen. And so worry has just consumed your life. So worry, control, pretending, giving off an image, a identity that is not who you really are. And all of those keep us from the present moment.
Mm.
And I realized that Jesus made it really clear how to be present. He said, the most important thing, if we're to sum it all down, is the great commandment, right? Love the Lord your God with all of your heart, your soul, your mind, and your strength, and love other people the same way. And so Jesus almost gave us this clue as to how to be present, to get connected to what are the things going on in my mind. So how to be present is what's occurring in my mind, like what thoughts are really here now, what's occurring in my heart, like what are the feelings that are going on here, and what's going on in my body, and what's going on in my spirit. And asking those questions, ultimately it's like, when you're looking for where the Starbucks is at the airport because you booked a 5 a.m. flight, right? You're looking for that red dot on the directory. That question, what's here now, is a present locator question. It helps you come back into the present moment with God, with yourself, and then you can be present with the people that he's called you to love. And it's really simple. By asking what's here now, you ask yourself, what am I thinking in my mind? What am I feeling in my heart? What am I experiencing in my body? And what is the Spirit of God whispering through me? And now you're here in this present moment. And there's all kinds of people in the world that, like, counselors help us look at the past, and life coaches help us look at the future. But the way to encounter Jesus is to be in the present moment. And so this book it's my offering to help people really experience the gift of the present moment and to live where they are so they can love God and others where
Mm.
they are.
That's so good. I took the Strengths Finder years ago, and my number one or two was futuristic. And then another time I took it, I had context, which means past. I
Mm,
am absolutely someone who struggles with being in the present. So I
Yeah.
look forward to reading your book, learning from
Yeah.
you. Uh,
We all do. We all do.
yes, that's right. It's human nature in some ways, but this idea of, God is present in the now. Maybe for
Hmm.
those church leaders who are watching this, listening to this, and they're discouraged, what sort of encouragement would you have for them to not give up or to see things perhaps from a different perspective?
Yeah, I love that question. And I would say one of the gifts of being in church work for the number of years that I have been, I get to learn from a lot of my mistakes and I get to learn from the things that I wish I would have done. And I would say in my early years in ministry, I often thought to myself, I'm the pastor. I'm the leader. I shouldn't name where I'm discouraged
Mm,
or where I'm disappointed. I need to always be pointing people to hope, and I need to always be affirming and encouraging and supportive. And there are experiences in this life. Jesus himself said, in this world, you will have trouble.
mm,
And I did not see a little asterisk that said pastors are exempt from that.
right, that's
Ministry
right.
leaders are exempt from that. We experience trouble, we experience pain, we experience loss, we experience grief.
Mm,
And one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves is learning to name that, to
mm,
just say that out loud to a safe circle of people, to find those people that can walk with you and support you. And so just learning to name, I'm defeated. I'm
mm,
discouraged.
mm.
I am having a hard time digesting hope today. Would you lend me your faith? Would you lend me your encouragement? Would you lend me the hope that we're going to see another day. Things
Mm.
things are going to get better. And so I would say that that's one of the first things that I've just learned over the years is to name your disappointment and your discouragement with safe people, to do
Yeah.
your own work.
Mm,
Um,
mm. That's good.
to really do your own work.
Yeah.
I had a friend that was telling me a story this morning, even about a person who was in ministry for quite some time. And there was literally just a trail of broken relationships behind their life.
Mm,
And I felt such a deep sadness as I listened to the story because I thought the work of God was perhaps being done through this person, but it was never being allowed to be done in this person.
mm.
And I would say never let the work of God that you're doing in the world destroy the work of God in you.
Yeah.
That's not full ministry.
Mm.
That's not uh yeah.
That's good.
That's not authentic fruit out in the
Yeah,
world then. And
that's right.
so I would say find the places where you can honestly do your work and do it. Be tenacious
Mm,
about it.
mm,
Be tenacious about your growth. Be tenacious about your healing. Be tenacious about the patterns that are not serving you or not serving your family. Be honest about patterns that are broken and that need healing because
mm,
pastors are human people living out the gospel. We are not exempt. We're not special. We're not higher or more exalted. And so, yeah, I would really say, and to the person that is listening that is discouraged, there is hope. There is hope on the other side of work.
mm.
And I encourage you to keep going, and it's worth it. It really is.
That's great. Thank you so much, Jeannie. Her website is Jeanne Stevens. That's Jeanne Stevens.com. And you can follow her on Instagram as well. Thank you so much for all you're doing. Keep up the great work. Blessings to you and Jarrett and your family.
Thanks, Eric.